An important thing to remember when you're working with Python is that strings that you've seen specified within single or double quotes are actually lists of characters. So when you see a string, think of it as a list of characters, and you can perform all operations that you would perform on a list. Let's now accept some input from the user. This can be done using the built-in input function in Python. The input function will throw up a prompt where you can type in your user input. Here, let's say we are building an app that will ask a customer at a restaurant for his or her order. We want to display what would you like to order today on screen. You can pass in the message you want displayed on screen as an input argument to the input function. The input function displays a prompt with a box where you can type in your user input. Let's say I want to order rice. I'm not feeling very adventurous at the moment. The input function returns the user's input to the program. Here we haven't assigned it to a variable, but what you'll typically do, you'll assign the return value of the input function to a variable. Here our variable is order. Let's say this time we want to order some American chop suey. American chop suey as a string will be assigned to the order variable. So if you print the output of order, you'll see that it's American chop suey in quotes. So is this string really a list of characters? Let's check it out. And this we can do by accessing the first element of this list using square brackets. And the first element at index 0 is indeed the character A. Accessing an element of this character list is fine, but what if we want to edit a particular character in this string? You'll find that editing a string is not allowed in Python. Python throws a type error. It says string object does not support item assignment. Strings in Python are immutable. Once a string value has been assigned, you cannot edit that string. So this kind of assignment is a type error because the string object cannot be edited. Let's try some list operations and see whether a string is indeed a list. I want to view all the characters of a string up to index 5. And the result is, as you can see, the characters from index 0 through 4. What about negative indices? Those work as well. So here you want to view all the characters from the very beginning till the very end except the last character. And that's what you see on screen. The last character Y is not included in the result thanks to the -1. Remember, -1 refers to the last element. When you're performing slicing operations on lists, what we haven't covered earlier is the step function. So within square brackets, you specify the start index followed by a colon, then you specify the end index. You can have another colon and specify a step size as well. Step specification allows you to skip over certain elements as you go from the start to the end. Here we want to start at index 0, go up to index 8 but not include index 8, and we want to step 1. A step size of 1 indicates that when we go from the start to the end index, we want to increment our step by 1. That means we don't want to skip over any of the elements. So all the elements in our string are included, starting at index 1 and going up to index 7. Let's do the same thing once again. This time we want to start at index 0, go up till index 8 but not include index 8, but our step size is 2. If you look at the result, you'll notice that we started at the very first position, that is with the letter A, and then we skip over every alternate element. Our step size is 2. We incremented our counter by 2 and we only picked A, E, I, and A. Let's increase our step size to 3 and let's see whether you can work out this result. This time we get even fewer characters. We only pick the characters A, R, and A. As we go from the start index to the end index, we increment our index by 3 each time. Let's look at some of the other interesting stuff that we can try here. Here we've omitted the start and the end index. That means we'll go from the beginning of our character list, from the beginning of our string to the very end of our string with a step size of 1. We'll increment our counter by 1. This will print the entire string. We'll try the same thing again, but this time with a step size of 2, we'll print every alternate character. Starting with the very first character A. People who love to show off their Python skills often use this notation. Take a moment and see whether you can figure out what exactly this does. This goes from the beginning to the end of the list. The start and end index have been omitted, but the step is -1. This means the beginning of the list is actually the end, so it reverses the list. Don't worry if this seems confusing to you. This is something you can memorize. If you want to reverse a string quickly using the shortest notation possible, this is how you do it. The other functions that we saw when we used lists work on strings as well. The length of a string can be calculated using the built-in function. You can use the index function in order to figure out where a particular character is in a list. There are some other functions in a string that you might find useful. You can count the occurrence of specific characters using the count function, and you pass in the character. Here we have two E's in American chop suey. If you receive a string that is in uppercase or in mixed case with upper and lower case, you can convert it to lowercase using the lower function. Notice American chop suey is all in lowercase now. Like the lower function, there is the upper function to convert a string to uppercase. In each instance, the original string is not modified. Remember, a string once created is immutable. The original string is not modified. These functions, both lower and upper, create new strings which you then assign to variables. There are some other useful functions that are available with strings. If you want to find whether a string starts with a particular prefix, you can use the starts with function. Yes, our order starts with the string American. Notice that this has to be an exact match. If the word American is not specified exactly as it is in the string, starts with will return false, not true. The corollary to starts with is ends with. So you can use the ends with function to check whether a string has a particular suffix. Our string ends with a Y. Note here that the functions starts with and ends with return Boolean values, true or false. An interesting and useful string function that you might find cause to use often is the split function. The split function basically takes that string and returns a list of strings, and this list of strings are basically tokens which are split on the boundary that you've specified. Here we want to split the original string on the space. In English, the space character is what is used to separate words. Order.split will give us the individual words from our original string. Tokens will be a list of strings, and tokens contains American and chop suey, the two words that are present in the original string. When you're using the Python programming language for data analytics kind of stuff, something that you'll do really often is work with CSV files. One line in a CSV file will have comma separated values as you see on screen. The name Ravi followed by a comma and then a bunch of scores for Ravi. If you want to extract the individual fields from this one line of a CSV file, you can use the string.split function. Here, one line in a CSV is split on the comma to extract the individual fields, and the result is assigned to the CSV tokens variable. The result stored in CSV underscore tokens is now a list as specified by the square brackets, and this is a list which contains the name and the scores for Ravi. The split function is extremely useful and it is used to tokenize strings. Splitting a string based on some character boundary is called tokenization. The corollary for the split function is the join function. This takes in individual string tokens and joins them into a single string. So you can call the join operation on your CSV tokens. The separator that you want to use to join the CSV tokens together is the colon. Pay special attention to the syntax. It is separator.join, and to the join function you pass in a list of tokens that you want joined together. Here we've regenerated the original line, Ravi and the various scores assigned to him, but this time the scores and Ravi are separated using the colon separator.